In the darkest pits beneath the misty mountains, a creature whispered to itself in the shadows. Once, he had been someone else entirely, a hobbit with a name, a family, a life. But the One Ring had found him, as it found all who were destined to bear its curse. 5 centuries of darkness had transformed Sméagol into Gollum, the most wretched being ever to walk Middle-earth. This is the story of how innocence died, how obsession consumed everything, and how even a monster's fall would save the world. Long before the Fellowship, before Bilbo's adventure, before even the great kingdoms of men had faded into legend, there lived a hobbit named Sméagol. He belonged to the Stoor folk, a branch of hobbits different from those who would later dwell in the Shire. The Stoors were river folk, comfortable with water in ways that their cousins were not, and they made their homes along the lush banks of the Anduin River. Sméagol's people lived simply as hobbits do. They fished the great river, tended small gardens, and gathered in their family groups beneath the shadow of the misty mountains. It was a quiet existence, unremarkable in every way. And Sméagol himself was, by all accounts, just another young hobbit, curious perhaps with an interest in roots and beginnings, in finding things that lay hidden beneath the earth. But there was something else in Sméagol, something that stirred in the depths of his heart like a sleeping serpent. A hunger, a need to possess, to own, to keep things for himself alone. It was subtle, barely noticeable, the kind of character flaw that might have remained dormant his entire life had fate not intervened. He had a friend, a companion closer to him than any other. Sméagol was his name, and the two of them were inseparable, often venturing together along the riverbanks, exploring the wild places where few others dared to wander. On one particular day, a day that would echo through the ages, they took a small boat onto the Gladden Fields, where the Anduin widened and iris flowers bloomed in brilliant clusters. It was Sméagol's birthday, a day of celebration, of small joys. The sun shone warm upon the water, and the world seemed at peace. Sméagol cast his line into the river, hoping for a fine fish to mark the occasion. But something else took the bait, something that pulled with strength far beyond any fish. The line went taut, and Sméagol was yanked forward with such force that he tumbled from the boat and disappeared beneath the water's surface. Sméagol cried out, watching in horror as his friend vanished into the murky depths. Moments passed, terrible, stretched moments where nothing stirred. Then Sméagol broke the surface, gasping, clutching something in his hand. It gleamed in the sunlight. A ring of gold, simple yet beautiful, its surface catching the light in ways that seemed almost alive. Sméagol stared at it with wonder, water streaming from his hair, a smile beginning to form on his face. But Sméagol saw it too, and in that instant, something ancient and terrible awoke within him. "Give us that, Sméagol, my love," Sméagol heard himself say, his voice strange even to his own ears. Sméagol looked up, surprised. "Why should I? I found it. It came to me on my line." His fingers closed around the ring protectively. "But it's my birthday, my precious, and I wants it," Sméagol insisted, moving closer. The hunger that had always lurked in the corners of his heart now blazed like a furnace. Nothing else mattered. Not friendship, not loyalty, not the innocent joy of a birthday celebration. Only the ring. Only possession. "I don't care," Sméagol replied, stepping back. "I have given you a present already, more than I could afford. I found this, and I'm going to keep it." What happened next occurred in a blur of motion and rage. Sméagol's hands found Sméagol's throat. They struggled, there on the riverbank, among the iris flowers and the soft grass. Sméagol fought, But Sméagol's newfound strength, or perhaps his desperate madness, proved too much. When it was over, Sméagol lay still, his eyes staring sightless at the sky. And Sméagol, trembling, pried the golden ring from his dead friend's fingers and slipped it onto his own. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for him alone. "My precious," he whispered, and those words would become his mantra, his curse, his entire existence distilled into 2 syllables. But the ring had plans for Sméagol that went far beyond that first terrible act. The change did not come all at once. It never does with the ring. Sauron had poured his malice into that golden band, and its corruption worked slowly, inexorably, like poison seeping through the veins. At first, Sméagol simply noticed that when he wore the ring, he became invisible. A useful trick, he thought. He began to use it to spy on his neighbors, to listen to their conversations, to discover their secrets. He learned things that gave him power over others. Small power, petty power, but power nonetheless. His family began to notice changes. Sméagol had always been somewhat solitary, but now he withdrew completely. He muttered to himself in dark corners. His eyes took on a strange, hungry look, and he flinched away from bright sunlight as if it pained him. Worst of all, he began to use the ring to steal. Small things at first, trinkets and bits of food, but gradually more and more. "Thief! Thief! Baggins!" his grandmother shrieked at him one day using the Stour word for burglar. The accusation stung because it was true. But Sméagol felt no shame, only rage that they would dare to judge him, to question his right to take what he wanted. The whispers started then, not from his people but from the ring itself. It spoke to him in his dreams, in the quiet moments when he sat alone. It told him he was special, that he deserved more, that the others were jealous of him and his precious treasure. The ring fed every dark impulse, every selfish desire, transforming them from minor character flaws into consuming obsessions. He began to use the ring to strangle the life from small creatures. At first, it was for food, fish and young rabbits, but soon the act of choking, of feeling life ebb away beneath his fingers, became something he craved. The ring was teaching him to kill, preparing him for a life of darkness. His people could bear him no longer. The whispers of murderer began to circulate, though none could prove what he had done to Sméagol. Finally, his own grandmother, the matriarch of their small clan, cast him out. Exiled, despised, alone, Sméagol fled into the wild with only his precious ring for company. And the ring was glad. For now it had its bearer all to itself, with no distractions, no competing loyalties. Now the real work of corruption could begin. He wandered for years, moving ever northward and eastward, drawn by some instinct he did not understand. The ring was guiding him, leading him toward darkness and secrecy, away from the eyes of those who might recognize what he carried. He avoided villages and towns, sleeping in ditches and caves, eating whatever he could catch or steal. The sun began to hurt his eyes. He took to traveling at night when the shadows were deep and comforting. His diet changed too. He could no longer stomach cooked food, preferring his fish and meat raw, even wriggling. The taste of blood became sweet to him, and always, he talked to the ring. "My precious, my love," he would croon, stroking it, gazing at it by moonlight. "They tried to take you from me, but we escaped them. Yes, we did. We're safe now, precious, safe together." But there was another voice too. Sometimes, in the darkest hours before dawn, Sméagol would seem to wake from a dream and wonder what he had become. What has it got in its pocketses? He would ask himself, as if he were two different people, as if the hobbit he had been and the creature he was becoming existed side by side, at war within the same twisted body. The ring was splitting his personality, creating a duality that would define the rest of his existence. Sméagol, the last remnant of the hobbit, and Gollum, the creature born of the ring's corruption. They would argue with each other, curse each other, blame each other for their crimes. "It's my birthday, and I wants it," Sméagol would whimper. "Our precious, yes, our precious," Gollum would hiss back. "We needs it. We needs it to survive." Finally, after years of wandering, he found a place that called to him. The misty mountains rose before him like a wall of stone, and within those peaks were tunnels and caverns that delved deep into the earth. One cave in particular, beneath the high pass, drew him like a moth to flame. There, in the deepest darkness, where no sunlight ever penetrated, where even the bravest dwarves feared to tread, Gollum made his home. The cold, black lake that lay in those depths became his entire world. He lived on an island of slimy rock in the middle of that subterranean sea, and from there he hunted the blind fish that swam in the waters and the occasional orc that wandered too deep into the mountain's roots. Years became decades. Decades became centuries. And Gollum sat alone in the dark, speaking to himself, arguing with himself, slowly going mad. The ring extended his life far beyond natural limits. He should have died centuries ago, but instead he persisted, a grotesque mockery of the hobbit he had once been. His body transformed. His skin became pale and luminous, stretched thin over bones that bent in unnatural ways. His eyes grew huge to capture what little light existed in the darkness, glowing with their own sickly luminescence. His teeth became sharp, better for tearing raw flesh. His hands and feet grew strong from years of climbing rock faces and swimming through icy waters. But these physical changes were nothing compared to what the ring did to his mind and soul. The constant companionship of the ring, the unending whisper of its malice, eroded everything that made him a thinking, feeling being. Memories of sunlight and laughter faded like old dreams. The faces of his family became foggy and indistinct. Even his own name began to slip away. All that remained was the ring, his precious, his love, his reason for existence. He created games to pass the endless dark years. Riddle games, played with himself, each personality challenging the other. What has roots as nobody sees, is taller than trees. Up it goes, and yet never grows, Sméagol would ask, and Gollum would answer, "Mountain, mountain." The game kept some fragment of his intelligence alive, even as everything else decayed. But loneliness gnawed at him like a physical hunger. 500 years alone in the dark. 500 years with no voice but his own, no company but the ring. Can you imagine such an existence? The absolute isolation, the crushing weight of solitude. It would break anyone, twist anyone, reshape them into something unrecognizable. And yet he endured, because the ring wouldn't let him die. It kept him alive, sustained him, used him as its vessel. For the ring had its own purpose, its own will. It sought always to return to its master, to Sauron, and it needed Gollum to survive until the right moment came. Gollum had become the ring's slave in the truest sense. He existed only to serve it, to protect it, to keep it hidden until it chose to reveal itself once more. His fate was no longer his own. Perhaps it never had been, from the moment Sméagol pulled that cursed gold from the river. But the darkness held even more trials in store for the wretched creature. For in the deep places of the world, time moves differently, and what seems eternal can shatter in a single moment. And Gollum's moment was coming. The creature that called himself Gollum existed in a state that defied understanding. To call him mad would be too simple, too clean. Madness implies a break from reality, but Gollum's reality had simply changed, twisted into something dark and strange, where the only truth that mattered was the ring. In the absolute darkness of his cave, Gollum had developed a relationship with the ring that went beyond mere possession. It was love, obsession, worship, and slavery, all woven together into something that consumed every fiber of his being. The ring was his precious, his birthday present, his love, his entire world compressed into a single golden circle. But the ring was also his tormentor. For the ring would not let him rest, would not let him find peace even in his wretched existence. It whispered constantly, filling his mind with desires that could never be fulfilled, with hungers that could never be satisfied. It showed him visions of power and dominion, of revenge against those who had wronged him, of a world where he ruled supreme. These visions were lies, of course. The ring had no intention of giving Gollum power. It used him as it used all its bearers, as a temporary vessel, a means to an end. But Gollum could not see this truth. He was too far gone, too completely enthralled. The duality within him deepened as the centuries crawled by. Sméagol, the echo of the hobbit, still existed somewhere in the depths of his consciousness, like a drowning man struggling beneath dark waters. This part of him remembered, however dimly, what it meant to be a person rather than a thing. It felt guilt, shame, even occasional flashes of longing for the simple life he had destroyed. But Gollum, the creature of the ring, was stronger. Gollum was ruthless, cunning, driven by pure animal need. Gollum knew only one imperative: protect the precious at all costs. Anything that threatened the ring must be destroyed. Anyone who might take it must be eliminated. The two personalities would argue endlessly, their voices echoing through the cavern in a mad dialogue with no witness but the blind fish and the distant drip of water. We wants it. We needs it. Must have the precious, Gollum would hiss, stroking the ring with trembling fingers. No, we mustn't. It's wicked, tricksy, false. Sméagol would cry back, a momentary spark of horror at what they had become. Master is our friend, our precious friend, Gollum would insist, speaking of the ring as if it were a living thing, which, in a sense, it was. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you, Sméagol would whimper, the terrible truth of their isolation cutting through the madness for just a moment. Not listening, not listening, Gollum would shriek, clutching his head, trying to silence the voice of conscience that still haunted him. This internal war became Gollum's entire existence. In the darkness, with nothing else to occupy his mind, he turned inward, fighting battles with himself that left him exhausted and more fractured than before. The ring encouraged this division, for a divided mind was easier to control, easier to manipulate. He developed elaborate rituals around the ring. He would take it off and place it carefully on a specific rock, then creep away, forcing himself to leave it behind, but never for long. Minutes, sometimes only seconds, before panic overwhelmed him and he rushed back, snatching it up with a gasp of relief. Thief! It's trying to steal the precious, he would accuse himself, as if the act of walking away made him a threat to his own possession. Other times, he would wear it for days without pause, reveling in the sensation of invisibility, of being hidden from all eyes. The ring made him feel safe, powerful, untouchable, but it also drained him, leaving him weak and disoriented when he finally removed it. He created a mythology around the ring, inventing stories about how he had come by it legitimately, how it was his by right. "Grandmother gave it to me, yes, precious, for my birthday," he would lie to himself. Or, "Found it, we did, fair and square. Finders, keepers, yes, precious." The memory of Sméagol's murder grew hazy, transformed by decades of self-deception. Sometimes Gollum convinced himself that Sméagol had given him the ring willingly. Other times that Sméagol had tried to steal it and deserved what he got. The truth, that he had strangled his best friend in a fit of sudden greed, was too painful to acknowledge. So he buried it beneath layers of false memory and justification. But Sméagol knew. In the quiet moments, in the dark hours when Gollum's defenses were down, Sméagol remembered, and the guilt nearly destroyed him. "Murderer! Murderer!" Sméagol would keen, rocking back and forth on his island. "We killed him. We killed poor Sméagol." "Shut up, shut up!" Gollum would roar back. "It was an accident. He fell. He was clumsy." "No, we choked him. We felt him die." Sméagol's voice would crack with horror. And then Gollum would retreat into the ring, clutching it, drawing strength from its malice, using its power to silence the voice of truth once more. "We survived, precious. That's all that matters. We're alive and we has our precious. Nothing else matters." The years ground on, century after century in the dark, with only hatred and madness and the ring for company. Gollum became something less than alive, but more than dead, trapped in an existence that should have ended long ago. He was a ghost haunting his own life, a warning of what the ring could do to any who claimed it. And in his madness, in his obsession, in his complete and total devotion to the ring, Gollum proved something that even the wisest in Middle-earth barely understood. The ring could corrupt anyone. Not just the powerful or the proud, not just kings and wizards, but even the smallest and seemingly most insignificant being could fall utterly under its spell. If a simple hobbit like Sméagol could be transformed into something like Gollum, what hope did anyone else have? But fate, cruel and imprevisible, was about to answer that question. For the ring, patient as stone, had decided it was time to move once more. On a summer's day in the year 2941 of the Third Age, while Gollum dozed fitfully on his island, something disturbed the eternal darkness of his cave. A light, small, flickering, but unmistakable. Light meant intruders. Light meant danger. Gollum crept to the edge of his island, his enormous eyes straining through the gloom. There, stumbling through one of the tunnels, was a creature Gollum had not seen in centuries. Another hobbit. Bilbo Baggins was lost, separated from his dwarf companions, wandering alone through the goblin-infested depths of the Misty Mountains. And in his hand, though Gollum did not yet know it, was the One Ring. For Bilbo had found it lying in the tunnel, dropped perhaps by Gollum himself during one of his hunting expeditions, or perhaps placed there deliberately by the ring's own will. Gollum watched this intruder with a mixture of hunger and calculation. Fresh meat, young and tender. It had been so long since he had tasted hobbit flesh. His mouth watered at the thought, but something made him pause. This hobbit had a light, which meant he might be dangerous. And there was something else, something Gollum couldn't quite identify, a presence that made him uneasy. Lost, lost, Gollum hissed to himself. So sad. Perhaps we helps him, precious. Perhaps we shows him the way, to our teeth. He crept closer, moving with the silence born of centuries of hunting in the dark. When he spoke, his voice was deceptively soft, almost friendly. "Bless us and splash us, my precious. I guess it's a choice feast. At least a tasty morsel it'd make us, Gollum." The hobbit, Bilbo, startled badly, drawing a small sword that glowed with a faint, elvish light. Gollum hissed at the sight of it, retreating slightly. Weapons were trouble. Perhaps this one wouldn't be so easy after all. What followed was the most important conversation of Gollum's long life, though he didn't know it at the time. Bilbo, clever and desperate, challenged Gollum to a game of riddles. If Bilbo won, Gollum would show him the way out. If Gollum won, he would eat Bilbo. It seemed a safe wager to Gollum. He was the master of riddles, had played the game with himself for centuries. No one could defeat him at riddles. They began. Back and forth, the riddles flew, each one answered correctly. Gollum found himself enjoying the game despite his hunger. It had been so long since he had real competition, since he had tested his wits against anyone but himself. "What have I got in my pocket?" Bilbo finally asked, more to himself than as an actual riddle. But Gollum seized on it. "Not fair, not fair." "It isn't fair, my precious, is it, to ask us what it's got in its nasty little pocketses?" Yet the rules were the rules. Gollum had to guess. He tried 3 times and failed each time. According to the terms of the game, he had lost. He owed Bilbo a way out. But Gollum had no intention of keeping his word. He would go to his island, retrieve his precious ring, make himself invisible, and follow this impudent hobbit. Then, when the moment was right, he would strike from the shadows and feast on fresh meat. He paddled his small boat across the Black Lake, his mind already planning murder. "We shows it the way out, yes, yes. But first we goes to our cave, gets our precious, and then we has some fun." But when he reached his island, when his groping hands searched the familiar rock where the ring always lay, he found nothing. Nothing. The ring was gone. The scream that erupted from Gollum's throat was like nothing that had ever echoed through those caves before. It was the sound of absolute loss, of a soul being torn apart, of a being whose entire existence had just been rendered meaningless. 500 years of companionship ended in an instant. "Thief! Thief! Baggins! We hates it! We hates it! We hates it forever!" The words became a shriek of pure anguish. Gollum knew with terrible certainty what had happened. Somehow, impossibly, that hobbit had found his precious, had stolen it, had taken the only thing in the world that mattered. The rage that consumed Gollum then was apocalyptic. He had killed for the ring once, and he would kill again 1,000 times over to get it back. All thoughts of games and riddles vanished. There was only the need, the desperate, overwhelming need, to reclaim what was his. He leapt into his boat and paddled with frantic strength toward the last place he had seen Bilbo. His mind raced, trying to understand how this had happened. When had he lost it? How could he have been so careless? The ring must have slipped from his finger during one of his hunts, and Bilbo had found it by chance. Or perhaps the ring had wanted to be found. The thought made Gollum even more frantic. If the ring had chosen to leave him, if his precious had betrayed him after all these years, then he truly had nothing left. He found Bilbo trying to escape through one of the tunnels. Gollum could sense the ring even though he couldn't see it, for Bilbo had discovered its power and put it on, becoming invisible. But Gollum knew his caves intimately, and he could hear the hobbit's breathing, could smell his fear. "It's got my precious," Gollum wailed, torn between the desire to attack and the paralyzing terror of losing the ring forever. Thief, 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 Baggins, we hates it, we hates it, we hates it forever. He should have attacked then, should have fallen upon the invisible hobbit with all his rage and strength. But something held him back. Perhaps the memory of that elvish blade. Perhaps some instinct for self-preservation that still survived. Instead, Gollum found himself doing something he never thought he would do. He showed Bilbo the way out. Not out of honor or duty, but because some dim part of his mind reasoned that the hobbit would be easier to follow in the open, easier to track and reclaim the ring from. Bless us and splash us, shut the door, or we'll be seen, Gollum hissed, guiding the invisible Bilbo toward the exit that led to the eastern slopes of the mountains. We doesn't want them to see us. No, we doesn't, precious. And then Bilbo was gone, running into the sunlight that Gollum could no longer bear, escaping with the ring, leaving Gollum alone in the darkness once more. But this time, the darkness was absolute. For 500 years, Gollum had lived in the depths, but he had always had his precious to comfort him. Now there was nothing. Just emptiness and loss and a howling void where his heart should have been. He couldn't stay in the caves, not without his precious. Every stone, every pool of water reminded him of what he had lost. The place that had been his refuge for centuries had become a prison of torment. So Gollum left. He crawled out of the mountains, following Bilbo's trail with a determination born of desperation. The sun burned his eyes and made his skin ache, but he didn't care. Nothing mattered except finding his precious. Nothing mattered except getting it back. For years he searched. He learned that Bilbo had returned to the Shire, that he lived in a place called Bag End in a town called Hobbiton. Gollum watched from the shadows, but he couldn't approach. The Shire was too well populated, too full of light and laughter and things that hurt him. And Bilbo seemed to be protected by forces Gollum didn't understand. Wizards, perhaps, or some magic of the ring itself. The search consumed him utterly. Without the ring, he had no purpose, no reason to exist. The divided voices in his head merged into a single wail of loss. Sméagol and Gollum were united at last in their grief, both mourning the precious they had loved and lost. He wandered Middle-earth like a wraith, always searching, never finding. He ventured into places he had never dared before, asking questions, following rumors. The name Baggins became an obsession, a curse he spat into the darkness. And then, driven by some impulse he didn't understand, or perhaps drawn by the ring's own call, Gollum found himself traveling toward Mordor. The land of shadow drew him like a lodestone, whispering promises of help in his search. Perhaps there, in the heart of darkness, he would find the power to reclaim what was his. It was the worst mistake he ever made. For in Mordor, Sauron himself still dwelt, the Dark Lord who had forged the ring and poured his malice into it. And Sauron had been searching for the ring for 3,000 years. When Gollum entered Mordor in the year 3017, he was captured almost immediately. The orcs dragged him before their masters, and he was questioned, tortured, forced to reveal everything he knew. The name Baggins, the location called Shire. Every detail of his encounter with Bilbo was extracted from him through pain and terror. Gollum told them everything. He had no choice, no strength to resist. And even as he babbled his secrets, part of him hoped that perhaps Sauron would help. Him would use his vast power to recover the ring and return it to its rightful owner. But Sauron had no intention of giving the ring to Gollum. Once he had extracted all useful information, He threw Gollum out of Mordor like garbage, a used tool discarded without thought. Gollum fled, more broken than ever. He had betrayed the only being he had ever loved, the ring itself, by revealing its location to Sauron. The guilt and shame added new layers to his madness. But there was one piece of information that neither Sauron nor his servants had extracted. Gollum still lived, and Gollum still remembered the way to the Shire. In the year 3018, Aragorn the Ranger captured Gollum near the Dead Marshes and brought him to Thranduil's halls in Mirkwood, where he was imprisoned and questioned by Gandalf. The wizard saw in Gollum the tragic arc of the ring's corruption, and through careful questioning, learned much about Bilbo's adventure and the ring's nature. But in June 3018, during an orc attack on the Woodland Realm, Gollum escaped, and this time he knew exactly where he was going. He was going to find the ring, his precious, his birthday present, his love, even if it meant crossing through fire and death itself. For on the borders of Mordor, something impossible was about to happen. The ring that had abandoned him was drawing close once more, carried by a new bearer. And this time, for the first time in centuries, Gollum felt something other than loss and hatred. He felt hope. The hobbits who left the Shire in the autumn of 3018 carried more than the one ring. They carried hope, friendship, and an innocence that Middle-earth had not seen in an age. Frodo Baggins, nephew and heir of Bilbo, bore the terrible burden of the ring, accompanied by his loyal companion Samwise Gamgee. Gollum tracked them with the patience of a hunter who has waited 500 years. He followed them through Moria, through Lothlorien, down the great river Anduin, always watching, always waiting for his moment. His precious was so close now. He could feel it, calling to him across the distance, singing its song of longing. But something was different this time. As Gollum watched Frodo, he saw something that confused him, something he hadn't expected. This hobbit was kind. More than that, he was suffering under the ring's weight in ways that Gollum recognized. The way Frodo would touch the ring, the haunted look in his eyes, the increasing burden of carrying it. Gollum knew these signs intimately. In the rocky lands of Eamon Muil, Gollum finally made his move. He crept down the cliff face as the hobbit slept, his fingers reaching for Frodo's throat, ready to strangle him as he had strangled Déagol so long ago. One quick squeeze, and the precious would be his again. But Frodo woke, and instead of the fear Gollum expected, instead of the hatred he deserved, Frodo looked at him with something else entirely. Pity. Don't hurt us. Don't let them hurt us, precious. Gollum whimpered as Sam leapt up with his elven rope. They'll hurt us, they will, the nasty hobbitses. Sam bound him roughly, the elven rope burning Gollum's skin like fire. But Frodo intervened, his voice gentle despite the danger. Gollum, that's your name, isn't it? The sound of his name, even that cursed name, spoken without hatred, without disgust, struck Gollum like a physical blow. When had anyone last spoken to him as if he were a person rather than a monster? Sméagol, he heard himself say, the old name emerging from some deep place he thought had died. Sméagol will swear on the precious. And something extraordinary happened. Frodo made him swear an oath, yes, but then, impossibly, Frodo trusted him, removed the burning rope, offered him a chance to guide them to Mordor in exchange for his freedom. It was more kindness than Gollum had received in half a millennium, and it broke something inside him. Or perhaps it mended something. The distinction was hard to tell. "We will serve the master of the precious," Gollum said, and for the first time in centuries, he wasn't entirely lying. Some part of him, the Sméagol part, genuinely wanted to help this hobbit who had shown him mercy. But Gollum, the creature of darkness, had other plans. He would lead them to Mordor, yes, but then he would find his moment. He would take back the precious, whatever the cost. The two sides of his nature warred constantly as they traveled. Through the dead marshes they went, Gollum leading them along secret paths he had discovered during his long search. He warned them not to follow the lights, the corpse candles that danced above the faces of the dead. Wicked lights, not that way. Sméagol says no, we must go another way. Frodo followed his advice, trusted him, and each act of trust was like a knife turning in Gollum's heart, because part of him wanted to deserve it, and part of him knew he never could. Sam was different. Sam saw through him, saw the malice that lurked beneath every helpful gesture. "I don't trust you, not as far as I could kick you," Sam would say, watching Gollum with suspicious eyes, and Gollum hated him for it, hated him with the pure rage of one whose deception has been recognized. "Fat Hobbit is jealous," Gollum would mutter when Sam couldn't hear. "He wants the precious for himself, tricksy, false. We'll deal with him, yes, precious, when the time comes." But Sméagol, the fading, desperate Sméagol, saw Sam differently. Sam loved his master. Sam would die for Frodo. And wasn't that what Sméagol had once known with Sméagol? Friendship, loyalty, love that asked for nothing in return? The war within him intensified. In the dark hours of the night, while the hobbits slept, Gollum would argue with himself more violently than ever before. "Master is being very good to us," Sméagol would whisper, hope stirring in his voice. "Of course he is, my precious. Very good indeed. But we wants it. We needs it. We must have it." Gollum would snarl back, "No, no. Master shows us the way. Master is kind. We serves Master." Sméagol insisted with desperate intensity. "The Master betrayed us. Wicked Master. Tricksy. False. He will leave us. He will take our precious and leave us alone again in the dark." Gollum's paranoia fed on centuries of isolation. "Master wouldn't do that. Master is our friend," Sméagol said, and the hope in those words was heartbreaking. "You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. You're a liar and a thief." Gollum shrieked at himself. "Go away. We don't want you here. Leave now and never come back." Sméagol cried, and for a moment, just one impossible moment, it seemed as if the Gollum personality might actually lose, might be driven out by the remnant of good that still survived. "Leave now and never come back," Sméagol repeated, softer now, almost believing it might be possible to become someone other than the monster he had been. They entered Ithilien, the fair land that had once been part of Gondor, now contested territory between the forces of light and dark. Faramir's rangers captured them there, but once again, Frodo showed Gollum mercy, protecting him even when it would have been easier to let the men of Gondor deal with him. "This creature is bound to me," Frodo told Faramir. "I will not see him harmed." Each act of kindness from Frodo was like rain falling on ground that had been parched for centuries. Sméagol began to emerge more and more, his voice growing stronger, his moments of clarity lasting longer. The creature who had lived in darkness for 500 years was beginning to remember what it meant to hope. And then came the moment that would define everything that followed. They rested in Ithilien after escaping Faramir, and Frodo and Sam fell into exhausted sleep. Gollum sat nearby, watching them. The moon was bright, casting silver light through the trees, and in that light Frodo's face looked peaceful despite the burden he carried. Gollum crept closer. Slowly, so slowly, until he was close enough to touch. His hand reached out, trembling, and gently, so gently, touched Frodo's sleeve. In that moment, Sméagol fully emerged. The barriers fell away, and for the first time in 500 years, the hobbit who had been looked at the hobbit who was, and he saw not a rival or a victim, but a mirror. Someone else who struggled under the ring's weight. Someone else who understood. "Master," Sméagol whispered, and the word was filled with something that might have been love, or as close to love as his shattered heart could manage. "My precious master." He looked almost happy, almost at peace. The deep lines of malice in his face had smoothed, and for just a moment you could see the hobbit he had been, young and curious before the ring destroyed everything. This was it, the turning point, the moment when redemption became possible. If left alone, if allowed to continue on this path, Sméagol might have truly helped them, might have guided them safely into Mordor, and even aided in the ring's destruction. The seed of goodness that Frodo's kindness had planted might have grown into something real. But then Sam woke. "What are you doing?" Sam's voice cut through the night, harsh and suspicious. "Get off! Don't touch him!" And just like that, the moment shattered. Sméagol recoiled as if struck, the fragile piece evaporating instantly. Sam saw only Gollum, only the creature he distrusted, only the potential threat to his beloved master. "I was just..." Sméagol tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How could he explain what he had been feeling? How could he make Sam understand? "Sneaking, sneaking," Sam accused. "Can't trust you for a second. Get away from him." And Gollum returned. The walls slammed back into place, harder than before. The seed of redemption withered and died, poisoned by rejection at the very moment it might have bloomed. "Wicked, tricksy, false," Gollum hissed, but whether he was speaking of Sam or himself wasn't clear. "Nobody likes us. Nobody trusts us. We'll show them. Yes, precious, we'll show them all." The damage was irreversible. From that moment on, Gollum's path was set. There would be no more moments of doubt, no more stirrings of Sméagol's conscience. Sam had destroyed the last chance for redemption with nothing more than words born of protectiveness and distrust. And the tragedy of it, the unbearable tragedy, was that Sam had been right to be suspicious. Gollum had meant to betray them all along, had been planning treachery from the start. But in that one moment, Sméagol had been genuine. In that one moment, change had been possible. Now it was too late. Gollum led them toward Mordor, but not by the paths he had originally intended. Now his mind turned to darker schemes. There was a pass, he told them. Cirith Ungol, the Spider's Pass. High and secret, yes, but it would take them into Mordor unseen. What he didn't tell them was what lived in that pass. Shelob, the great spider, ancient and terrible, who had made the tunnels her lair. Gollum had encountered her before, had made a pact with her. He would bring her fresh meat in exchange for his freedom. And now he had the perfect offering. "We gives her the hobbits. Yes, precious. She'll eat them, and then we takes the precious from their bones," Gollum whispered to himself as he led them up the winding stairs toward the pass. "She eats them, and will never be hungry again. Fat hobbit first. Yes, we hates him." But even now, even with betrayal so close, Sméagol whispered occasionally from the depths, "Master will be hurt. Master who was kind to us." And Gollum would crush that voice ruthlessly. "Master has the precious. Master stole it. Master deserves what's coming." They climbed the endless stairs, Gollum pointing out the way with false helpfulness. At the top, the entrance to Shelob's lair yawned like a mouth, dark and reeking. Frodo and Sam hesitated, sensing danger. "This is the way, yes?" Gollum urged. "Only way, Sméagol promises." And he watched as they entered the tunnel, knowing what awaited them in the darkness. This was his betrayal, his final rejection of the kindness Frodo had shown. In leading them to Shelob, he had chosen Gollum over Sméagol, had chosen the ring over redemption, had chosen, ultimately, to remain the monster rather than become the person again. But fate had one more trick to play. For Frodo had been given the Phial of Galadriel, a light to guide him through dark places. And when Shelob attacked, when her massive bulk descended upon them in the tunnel, Frodo raised the phial, and its light drove the ancient spider back. Gollum watched from the shadows, torn between disappointment that his plan had failed and relief that Frodo had survived. The war within him had not ended. It never would. But Shelob was patient, and she struck again when the light faded. She caught Frodo in her webs, stung him, and left him paralyzed and apparently dead. Sam, believing his master lost, took the ring and fled, and Gollum saw his chance. He attacked Sam then, trying to reclaim the precious. They fought on the stairs of Cirith Ungol, and Gollum, weakened by centuries of darkness, proved no match for Sam's desperate strength and courage. Sam drove him off, and Gollum fled into the rocks, weeping with frustration. But the ring was in Mordor now, so close to its master, and Gollum had to follow, had to try once more to reclaim it, even if it meant entering the very heart of darkness itself. Time passed in confusion. Sam rescued Frodo, who was alive after all, merely paralyzed by Shelob's venom. They donned orc disguises and made their way across the nightmare landscape of Mordor, heading always toward Mount Doom, the place where the ring had been forged, and the only place it could be destroyed. And Gollum followed, always following, unable to stop, unable to give up, driven by an obsession that transcended reason or survival instinct. The land itself seemed to be dying. Sauron's power was focused entirely on the war. His attention turned toward the great battle raging at the Black Gate, where Aragorn and the armies of the West made their desperate stand. But here, in the cracks and shadows of his own realm, two hobbits and a creature moved toward the one thing that could end his reign forever. They reached the slopes of Mount Doom, the great volcano that dominated Mordor's landscape. The fires of its forge burned eternal, waiting to consume the ring that had been made in their depths. Frodo struggled under the ring's weight, each step an agony, his mind slowly being consumed by its power. And here, Gollum made his final move. He had tracked them up the mountain, staying hidden until the last possible moment. Now, as Frodo and Sam struggled up the final slope, Gollum attacked. "It's mine, my own, my precious," he shrieked, leaping upon Frodo with desperate fury. They struggled on the edge of the Samath Naur, the chamber of fire where the ring had been forged. Frodo, weakened and nearly broken, fought back with strength born of desperation. Sam tried to intervene, but the two ring-bearers, for both had carried the ring, were locked in their own private battle. Finally, Frodo broke free and staggered into the chamber. Sam and Gollum followed, and there, suspended over the fires of creation, they witnessed something that none of them expected. Frodo claimed the ring for his own. Standing at the very edge of the cracks of doom with the fires that could destroy the ring burning below, Frodo put the ring on his finger and declared, "The ring is mine." The ring had won. After all their struggle, all their sacrifice, Frodo had fallen at the last moment, just as Isildur had fallen 3,000 years before. The ring's corruption was complete, but Gollum would not accept it. With a shriek of pure rage and desperate need, he launched himself at the invisible Frodo. They struggled at the precipice, and then, in a moment that would echo through all the ages of Middle-earth, Gollum bit off Frodo's finger, ring and all. For one perfect, eternal moment, Gollum held his precious again. The ring was in his hand, solid and real, the only thing he had ever truly loved. 500 years of separation ended in an instant of perfect joy. "Precious, precious, precious," he cried, dancing at the edge of the abyss, holding the ring aloft in triumph. His eyes gleamed with mad ecstasy. He had won. After everything, after all the betrayals and suffering and loss, he had his precious back. He lifted it toward his mouth, eager to place it on his finger, to feel its power surge through him once more. And he stepped backward into empty air. The realization came too late. His feet found nothing but void. His eyes widened, the triumph turning instantly to horror. For one suspended heartbeat, he hung there, the ring clutched in his hand, understanding finally that he had made a terrible mistake. "Precious," he screamed, but whether it was a cry of love or despair, no one could say. And then he fell. Down into the fires of Mount Doom, the ring still clutched in his hand. The two of them, Gollum and his precious, finally eternally united in destruction. The fires consumed them both. The ring melted, its power dissipating like smoke on the wind. And Gollum, the creature who had lived 500 years beyond his natural span, who had been sustained only by the ring's power, died at last. But in that final moment, as the flames took him, was there a flash of something else? Did Sméagol emerge one last time, freed finally from the ring's corruption? Did the hobbit he had been look out through those eyes and feel, perhaps, relief that the long nightmare was finally over? We'll never know. The fires of Mount Doom keep their secrets. What we do know is this: Gollum saved Middle-earth. Not through heroism or sacrifice, not through redemption or change of heart, but through the very obsession and greed that had defined his existence. In the moment when even Frodo fell to the ring's power, Gollum's desperate need to possess it accomplished what no one else could. He carried it into the fire and destroyed it. The Dark Tower fell. Sauron's realm crumbled to dust. The age of his terror ended, all because a wretched creature couldn't let go of the thing he loved. Fim da parte 3, início da conclusão. Contagem aproximada. 3.900 palavras até aqui nesta parte. In the annals of Middle-earth, countless heroes earned their places in legend. Aragorn, who became king. Gandalf, who faced the Balrog. The elves who sailed west. The dwarves who defended their halls. All of them are remembered with honor, their deeds celebrated in song and story. But Gollum? Gollum is remembered, if he is remembered at all, as a villain, a monster, a cautionary tale about the corrupting power of the ring. Few speak his true name. Fewer still acknowledge what he accomplished in his final moments. Yet his story may be the most important of all. For Gollum represents something that the great heroes do not. He shows us what the ring does to the ordinary, to the small, to those who have no great destiny or noble purpose. He shows us that anyone, literally anyone, can fall under its spell. Sméagol was not evil when he found the ring. He was flawed, yes, with a selfish streak and a curious nature that sometimes led him into trouble. But he was not a murderer, not a monster. He was just a hobbit, living a simple life by a river, who made one terrible choice in a moment of sudden greed. That choice, strangling Sméagol for a ring he had just laid eyes upon, set him on a path from which there could be no return. The ring magnified every flaw, exploited every weakness, transformed him slowly but inexorably into something that could barely be called a person anymore. 500 years, 5 centuries of corruption, of isolation, of the ring's constant whisper eating away at his sanity and his soul. No other bearer endured the ring's influence for so long. Not Sauron, who was its master, not Isildur, who carried it for only 2 years before it betrayed him, not Bilbo, who had it for 60 years, not even Frodo, who bore it for less than a year. Only Gollum. And he survived it, if survival is the right word for what he became. His story is tragic beyond measure because redemption was possible. We saw it, there in Ithilien, when Sméagol touched Frodo's sleeve with something like love in his twisted heart. For one shining moment, the corruption lifted, and the hobbit emerged from the monster. Change was within reach, but it was snatched away by circumstance, by Sam's distrust, by 500 years of evil that couldn't be erased by a few weeks of kindness. The seed that Frodo planted died before it could grow, and Gollum returned, stronger and darker than before. And yet, and this is perhaps the most profound irony of all, Gollum's evil accomplished what good could not. When Frodo, the noble, the pure-hearted, the one who had resisted the ring longer than anyone thought possible, finally fell at the very brink of success, it was Gollum who finished the quest. His attack on Frodo, his desperate grab for the ring, his inability to control his greed even for one moment. These character flaws that had damned him became the means of salvation for all Middle-earth. Gandalf saw it long before the end. When Frodo first learned that Gollum had once possessed the ring, he wished that Bilbo had killed him when he had the chance. But Gandalf replied with words that would prove prophetic. Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. My heart tells me that Gollum has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before this is over. Gollum's part was both, good and ill, intertwined so completely that they cannot be separated. He betrayed Frodo to Shelob, yet his own greed destroyed the ring. He was damned by his choices, yet saved the world through his nature. He fell into darkness so deep that no light could reach him, yet in falling accomplished what the mightiest heroes could not. This is what makes his story so unbearably tragic. There is no clean narrative, no simple lesson. Gollum was a victim and a villain, a monster and a martyr, damned and instrumental in salvation. He existed in a space of moral complexity that defies easy categorization. Think about what he lost. Not just his life or his body or his sanity, though he lost all of these. He lost himself. The person he had been, Sméagol of the River Folk, was murdered by the person he became. And unlike most murders, this one took centuries, each day stealing a little more of his humanity until nothing recognizable remained. The ring did this to him. Not quickly, not cleanly, but slowly, methodically, with malice that seemed almost personal. It took his family, his home, his name, his very face. It isolated him so completely that he forgot what it meant to have a conversation that wasn't with himself. It extended his life far beyond natural limits, not as a gift, but as a curse, forcing him to endure consciousness long after consciousness had become unbearable. And through it all, the ring never loved him back. It used him, sustained him just enough to keep him alive and useful, and then abandoned him the moment a better bearer came along. Gollum's love for the ring was the defining characteristic of his existence, but the ring viewed him with the same contempt it held for all its bearers, as a temporary tool to be discarded when convenient. Yet Gollum never stopped loving it, even knowing, in some deep part of his fractured mind, that the ring was destroying him. He could not let go. Love, obsession, need, addiction. Whatever word we use, it owned him completely. And that devotion, toxic and self-destructive as it was, proved stronger than Sauron's power, stronger than Frodo's will, stronger than anything else in Middle-earth. In the end, what saved the world was not the strength of heroes or the wisdom of wizards. It was the weakness of a broken creature who loved something that could never love him back, and who held on to that love even as it killed him. If that isn't tragedy in its purest form, then nothing is. Frodo understood, at least partially. After everything Gollum had done to him, the betrayal, the attack, the bite that cost him his finger, Frodo still showed him pity. "I am glad you are here with me, here at the end of all things, Sam," Frodo said as Mount Doom crumbled around them. And perhaps in that moment he thought of Gollum too, the other ring-bearer, the one who had carried the burden longer than anyone and paid the highest price. Sam, loyal Sam, would tell the story later. He would speak of Frodo's courage and Aragorn's nobility and all the heroic deeds of the War of the Ring. But would he speak of Gollum? Would he tell how the wretched creature had saved them all, however inadvertently? Or would Gollum fade from memory, reduced to a monster in the dark, his sacrifice unacknowledged, his suffering forgotten? We remember Gollum now, not because he deserves honor, but because he deserves to be understood. His story is not comfortable or uplifting. It doesn't provide easy answers about good and evil, about redemption and damnation. It simply shows us what the ring could do, taken to its absolute extreme. It shows us how far someone can fall, and how even in falling, they might accomplish something greater than they ever imagined. The most tragic monster in the history of the Lord of the Rings was not a Balrog or a dragon, not an orc chieftain, or even Sauron himself. It was a hobbit named Sméagol, who made one terrible choice and spent 500 years paying for it, who loved something that destroyed him, who was offered redemption and lost it to circumstance, who fell into fire at the moment of his greatest triumph, and in falling saved the world he no longer understood. His last word was, "Precious. Make of that what you will." In the end, Gollum's legacy is this. He proves that even the smallest person, even the most wretched and corrupted, can change the fate of the world. Not through virtue or heroism, but simply by being what they are. Sometimes the most broken things accomplish what the strongest cannot. Sometimes the monster saves the day, and sometimes, just sometimes, tragedy is not the opposite of salvation, but the path that leads to it. The fires of Mount Doom have long since cooled. The age of the ring has passed into legend. But somewhere in the echoing depths beneath the misty mountains, if you listen carefully on quiet nights, you might still hear an echo, a whisper, a voice that knows only two words, repeated endlessly into the darkness. My precious. and in those words is contained all the love, all the loss, all the tragedy of the most broken soul ever to walk Middle-earth. A hobbit who found a ring, a monster who lost himself, a creature who saved the world. Sméagol, Gollum, precious, gone but never forgotten.